Think about the last time you asked someone on a date. Or the last time someone asked you. Maybe it was a text message. Maybe it was a swipe. Maybe it was a nervous conversation that you rehearsed 3 times before you actually said it out loud. It felt natural, right? Like something humans have always done. But here's the thing. They haven't. The date, as a concept, as a social ritual, as something you plan and dress up for and stress about, is barely 100 years old. And it wasn't invented by romantics. It was invented by a city. To understand where dating came from, you have to understand what came before it.
A first-time experience is about to confront the students of Lincoln School. The Teen Club is organizing a community house, a new kind of party.
Gee, things are happening. Oh, and look, a real party for a change. Dave!
Let's go together, Cindy.
Well, how do you know somebody isn't going to ask to take?
Oh, do you think somebody might? Oh, golly, I'd be scared to death. Maybe we better go together, Cindy.
Hey, George, how about it? You and your date. Who you gonna ask?
Me? I don't like parties. I am not.
Yeah, too.
I am not.
Hi, boys.
Hi, Coach.
What's the big argument?
Oh, Bill's kidding George. He says he's scared to ask a girl to the winter party.
You scared to make a date, George?
I never asked a girl to anything.
Maybe you haven't, but you'll be wanting to someday. Look at it this way. Remember the first time you ever dived? Remember how you just knew you couldn't make that first plunge? But you did. After that, it was easy, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's all right as far as diving goes.
But gosh, dating's different.
Sure, but you'll want to date someday, George. It's easier here where you know everyone so well. Later on.
And what came before, it looks almost nothing like what we know today. For most of human history, if you were interested in someone, you didn't take them anywhere. You came to them. Specifically, you came to their home. Courtship, as it was called, happened inside the family house, in the parlor, with parents present or nearby. A young man would call on a young woman, meaning he'd show up, sit in the family living room and talk. Under supervision, with everyone watching. It sounds suffocating. But in a way, it made complete sense. The family had everything to gain or lose from who their daughter chose. Marriage wasn't just romantic. It was economic. It was social. It was survival. So of course they wanted to be in the room. There were rules. Elaborate, unspoken, deeply understood rules. A woman could refuse a caller. She could accept him. She could allow more visits or fewer. She controlled the space. Because it was her space, the man had to earn his place in that parlor. And everyone in the community knew the protocol. This system had been running in various forms for centuries. Then something happened that broke it completely. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, millions of young people left their small towns and villages and moved to the cities. To find work, to find opportunity, to find something bigger than the life they were born into. And when they arrived, they had no parlor. Think about that for a second. The entire courtship system was built around a physical space that working-class city immigrants simply didn't have. They lived in crowded tenements, shared rooms, tiny apartments with 6 people and 1 kitchen. There was nowhere to receive a caller. Nowhere to sit and talk privately. Nowhere that felt appropriate. So young men started taking young women out. To the park. To the Nickelodeon. To the dance hall. To restaurants they could barely afford. Not because it was romantic. Not because anyone had planned it this way. But because there was literally nowhere else to go. And just like that, almost by accident, the date was born. The word itself appeared in print for the first time around 1896. In a newspaper column about a young man whose girlfriend had been filling up her dates with other men. It wasn't a grand romantic invention. It was slang. Urban slang. From people figuring out a new world as they went. Here's where it gets interesting and a little uncomfortable. In the old parlor system, the woman held the power. It was her home, her family, her rules. But when courtship moved into public spaces, restaurants, cinemas, dance halls, something shifted. Because public spaces cost money. And in 1900, women barely earned any. Suddenly, the man was paying for the meal, for the tickets, for the evening. And with that economic transaction came something that hadn't existed before, an implicit expectation. Sociologists who studied this period noted something troubling. Young women in cities were sometimes referred to, in the press, in the streets, even by police, as women who exchanged companionship for treats, meals, entertainment, small gifts. The language used was harsh and often deeply unfair, but what it pointed to was real. The shift from home courtship to public dating had accidentally created a power imbalance that hadn't existed before. The woman lost her home court advantage, and the man, by virtue of paying, gained a new kind of leverage. This wasn't a conspiracy. Nobody sat in a room and designed this. It emerged, organically, messily, confusingly, from a million small decisions made by a million young people just trying to connect with each other in an unfamiliar world. Which is, if you think about it, exactly what people are still doing today. By the 1940s and 50s, dating had become so central to American life that schools started teaching it. Not as a controversial topic, not as something to debate, as a life skill, like cooking or driving. Educational films were produced and shown to teenagers across the country, explaining step by step how a date was supposed to work, how to ask, how to accept, how to behave at a restaurant, what to talk about, how to say goodnight. Watch this footage for a moment. Look at these teenagers being guided through a social ritual as if it were a science experiment. As if romance could be learned the same way you learned algebra. In one film, a boy named Nick rehearses conversation topics in the mirror before his date. The film literally lists the acceptable subjects: sports, school events, a friend's new pet. Not too personal, not too serious. Keep it light. Keep it moving. In another, a narrator explains the proper way to hold a door, the correct order in which a couple should walk into a restaurant, the precise moment a young man should stand up when a girl returns to the table. It's almost funny now. Almost. But underneath the dated production values and the polished narration, these films were doing something remarkable. They were codifying, for the first time in history, what a date was supposed to look like. They were turning a messy, accidental urban invention into a formal institution, with rules, with etiquette, with right and wrong answers. And those rules, even filtered through decades of cultural change, are still with us. Here is something worth sitting with. The golden age of dating, the 1950s image of milkshakes and drive-ins and going steady, was not some timeless expression of human romance. It was a product. After World War II, America had a booming economy and a generation of young people with money to spend. And industries saw exactly what that meant. The restaurant industry, the cinema industry, the music industry, the car industry, whose backseat became, not accidentally, a cultural symbol of teen romance. Companies built entire marketing strategies around the date as a consumer event. The flowers you bring, the dinner you pay for, the movie you choose together, the perfume she wears. Every single element of the romantic date ritual had an industry behind it, actively encouraging it, romanticizing it, selling it back to you wrapped in candlelight. This is not cynicism. Connection between people is real. Attraction is real. The desire to share an evening with someone you care about. That is as old and as human as anything we know. But the specific shape of the date, the format, the expectations, the anxiety, the question of who pays and what it means, none of that is ancient. None of that is instinct. All of it was invented, refined, sold, and handed to us as tradition. The next time you're getting ready for a date, picking the restaurant, wondering what to wear, rehearsing what you'll say, you're not following some ancient human script. You're following a script that was written in a New York tenement building, refined in a dance hall, taught in a school film, marketed by a restaurant chain, and passed down to you as if it had always existed, which is remarkable, really, because it means that something you feel so personally and so privately is also something entirely shared, something invented by ordinary people who are just trying to figure it out, the same way you are. The date didn't always exist, but the need behind it, the desire to say simply, I want to spend time with you, that one's as old as people are.
Well, I think we planned our schedule just about right. It's not 12 yet.
I don't think my folks are still out.
He hasn't yet asked her for another date. A little hint might help.
Parents are.
I really had a wonderful time, Danny. Thanks for asking me.
Danny's pretty sure now that Alice would accept another date if he asked.
It was all just wonderful.
Well, I do think we have fun together.
Uh-huh, we do.
Maybe we can plan something for later on.
I'd like that.
Well, we can talk about it at school.
Uh-huh.
Well? No, there won't be a goodnight kiss. Not on the first date. Neither one really expects it. And so, the date's over. And we've seen some practical examples of date etiquette. The kind of behavior that girls like to see in boys, and boys like to see in girls. The kind of behavior that makes dates a lot more enjoyable.